we have one of our members, Susana Hernandez Araico. She's going to ask you some questions, and then we'll let you talk to us. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez, I'm asking a question only because I was instructed to have a couple of questions.
Okay, should I stand by the mic?
We are so happy. We are so happy to have you among us. Thank you so much. Well, no, I think my voice doesn't project as much as yours, but
So you know what, when I speak, it doesn't project as well as when I sing. So
we wouldn't mind if you sang your answers.
The one question which I think our members and guests would like to hear your answer is, when and how did you realize that you wanted to be a professional opera singer?
That's a lovely question. You heard it because you have the microphone. So I think it was when I was at Juilliard that I realized I did want to become an opera singer, but I grew up with it, and thank you, in my household. My mother in her day was an opera singer, but I wasn't interested in it then. I thought I found it boring. And she would drag me to rehearsals and performances, and I thought it was magical until everybody started singing, and then I thought, not for me. So I thought I would go into acting and dancing and maybe musical theater. And then I realized that I appreciated the depth of opera. It just has so many different layers, and then I learned that it is the one art form that unites all of the art forms. There is a lot of psychology in it. I think in everything you interpret, you will find that psychology is helpful, but especially in opera, because the texture of the orchestra is so beautiful, and the music in the orchestra is expressing what no word in any language can express, and sometimes it's the thoughts and feelings of the character, not what they're saying, but what they're feeling that they might not be able to admit is in the colors of the orchestra. So then I thought, yes, I really do want to pursue this. So maybe around age 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Another question that our guests and members will enjoy very much hearing you answer is, what has been the greatest challenge in your profession? Or one of the major ones?
It's another great question. I think one of the tough things about the profession is literally living out of a suitcase, because you're away from home so much, and you're away from your loved ones. And it takes, Plácido Domingo has said this a lot, and it's so true. It really requires for your loved one, your family, the closest people to you, to be very supportive of what you're doing, so that you can feel the emotional freedom to pursue it. It's very rewarding to do what you love to do, no matter what that profession is. But when you find what your gift is, and you have the ability to devote your life to that, it's rewarding. So what it asks of you as far as a sacrifice, I think you can weather a lot better, because you're really loving and fulfilling your best self, I think, when you pursue the gift with which you want to become. And I think the demands you put on yourself, the demands of the business, I think they should be high, meaning your excellence, your level of excellence should be a joyful goal, not an oppressive pressure, if that makes sense, because you're always striving for excellence, but I think you want to be as excellent as you can, because it's so precise and it's so stunning when it's done right. And I think all of us have a downfall, which is that we're perfectionists. I'm not OCD, so my closet is a mess, but with my work, I'm very, very hard on myself. So but that's okay. That's okay.
What has been your greatest satisfaction in this profession?
I think growing, feeling that I'm growing, that I'm seeing results of the hard work, meaning that there's some things that become vocally, technically, emotionally easier, not easier, but I feel like I'm on top of it in a way, instead of I have to reach for that level. It makes a great sense. But the best satisfaction is when you feel you've touched even one person in the audience, but when you feel the reaction from the audience that they've been with you for that entire journey and you have co-created together, because that's really what we're doing. The audience is never passive. The audience is part of the creative process. We are feeling your energy and you are impacting all of us on stage. So when you feel you've made a positive impact, that is the greatest satisfaction, because ultimately this is a service. And you want to connect.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martínez. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a ustedes. Gracias.
Tenemos tiempo para dos preguntas. Alguien de los jóvenes hispanos. We have time for two more questions. Some of the young Hispanics that want to ask a question to Ms. Martínez.
I'm not an opera, but I'm just interested in how long did it take you to prepare for the performance that you did today? What was it like for you?
Please repeat the question.
Okay, what was it like to prepare for this performance, or for the production, for the role of Butterfly? How long does it take? The first time I ever did Madame Butterfly was in October of 2010. And I was working on it for several months before that, and I was very blessed to find my still current voice teacher in August of that year, Dr. Stephen King. And he's also the voice teacher for the young artists here, as well as the young artists in Houston Grand Opera and Rice University. He heads the voice department at the Shepherd School of Music. Anyway, I make such a point to bring him to your awareness because he is a tremendous teacher who gave me a lot of tools, technical tools for my concentration and focus and approach. So those at least 2 months of very regular voice lessons with him were very important. Now, when you're that's something technical. And I have to work, all of us have to work very hard on the technical aspect so that by the time we get on stage, it seems effortless. But it's not. For example, here I'm mic'd to speak to you, but I'm not mic'd on stage. So that's very demanding physically, very much like an athlete. To coach the role while you're learning it, that means that you're getting together with a pianist who's playing the piano reduction of the orchestra score. So a piano vocal score has just 2 hands, of course, for the piano, and they try to get as much of the instrumentation from the orchestra parts so that we know what we're listening to in that score. And they know the role very well, they know the opera very well, so if you make one slight mistake, if this note was too long or too short, they will help you fix that and catch everything so that you are as flawless as you can be when you start rehearsals. Then we rehearse for about a month. But some roles take a bit longer. When I've done the role of Rusalka, which I hope that we can maybe do here sometime, because it's so beautiful. It's the Little Mermaid, based on the original Hans Christian Andersen, the Brothers Grimm. So it's very tragic, and it's not the happy Disney version. There's death and eternal torments at the end. But it's an incredible piece, and it was my big, I would say, existential awakening. And there are pieces that can do that to you, that impact you on such a profound level. If the character is more courageous than the interpreter, then that character demands that you rise to their level, if that makes sense. If you want to do justice to that character, you have to face all of that and be very honest and very vulnerable with it. So I bring that up because it's in Czech, and that took me over 2 months to learn. Usually I can learn a role in about a week, but that took 7 weeks, and then 7 weeks of rehearsal. And that was intense, but a very beautiful experience. And then for here, we rehearsed for several weeks for this one as well.
Was there an audition?
When you start your career, you have to audition a lot. And then once you get more established, people know you in the business, and your manager can simply refer you, and they know. They've seen you. A lot of for example, the people that run the casting department here do travel to other performances in other companies to see who's out there, who's singing, so then they can get an idea. And I've been doing it now for about 21 years. That's not counting schooling and all of that. So I think by now they know me, so I didn't have to audition for this one. I got lucky. No, it's okay. I got lucky. I didn't have to audition. And behind you, there was a gentleman that had a question. Yeah?
Yes, you've been a professional singer for a long time, and you practice any particular opera, for many times, as you said, rehearse, right?
Mm.
So it becomes a part of you. You own it. It's a subconscious almost. But on the day of performance, when you start, is there a conscious part that you're reacting to? That particular day, the orchestra, the conductor, and the audience, and so forth?
I think every performance day is different, depending on what you did the night before, how you woke up that day, what you ate, whatever's going on in your life, whatever's going on in the news. A couple of days ago, I don't want to bring up sadness, but we're living in a very, very different world now. And we heard about Brussels, the airport. Mm-hmm. And I think about my colleagues, all of us that are constantly traveling, everyone who's, just abroad, and that affects all of us. It affects me, and I made a conscious choice to not watch the news for a few days because it's just too much and I can't fix it. So I said for the next few days, I just need to take a break because those things can affect us. What I did yesterday and the day before was take my son and my stepdaughter to Disney. So I was really tired today. So I was, And actually I had to use a lot more of my technique today. Sometimes you can just be more in the character, and sometimes you have to really be more in your body. More grounded. Sometimes when I take a deep breath and I start a sound, I imagine it underneath my feet, underneath the floor. That anchors me, and I feel that it makes my whole body wake up and get engaged. Again, like an athlete. So I had to do a lot more of that, and then finally when I felt that I was riding that, I said, okay, but I have to do it this way today. Thank you.
At a young age, when you were aspiring to be an opera singer, can you tell us what role inspired you the most?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, this is very nice. If you haven't tried the Pinot Noir, it's very nice. When I was very little, I fell in love with West Side Story. That is my favorite work. It is absolute genius. And it's funny, I was about 4 when I heard it. My mother was singing it in concert version. So she had the record at home and we were listening to it, and I liked the number Cool by the American Gang. And I thought it's interesting because cool boy, cool boy, and it has a lot of great counterpoint, very jazzy. But then as I got older, I wanted to be Maria one day. And, I would lip sync I know everybody's line by heart. I could play I could do riff, I could do any character because I love it so much. And it occupied a lot of my imagination, a lot of my fantasy. Music and musical theater and all of that was a great escape for me. And it's not anything bad about it, but being an only child, I spent a lot of time by myself. So my connection to the world a lot was through music, and that's how I kept myself just happy and connected. My cat and music, especially West Side Story. And that's why I like kids to embrace music and classical music and playing an instrument, even if they don't do it well. I like to talk to them. I get to visit a school next week and just tell them about it. Maybe sing a few high notes so they can see what it sounds like. And it's very important, and I encourage you in your communities to expose children to the arts. And there could be after-school programs, there could be summer camps. Here they have an opera camp, for example. And it's good for children to ignite their imagination. Remember that some kids live in single-parent households that are surviving, just surviving. So the idea of dream big is not going to enter the mother's mind necessarily, or the father's mind, because they're thinking we're just surviving, but the child needs to dream. And they need to, if they reach up here, hopefully they get up here, but they might get here, but that's still great. But if they only reach for here, it's unlikely they'll reach here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So whenever you can, please reach out to children in your community and bring them to the opera.
If you had to pick your favorite 3 operas, what would they be and why?
My favorite 3 operas and why, what would they be and why? Rusalka, I would say, because it's every opera, once you start, you're in another world. When you hear the orchestra start, you're in a different dimension. But that one in particular, by Dvorak, there's something very magical about it. And it transcends this world, and it takes you on this incredible emotional journey. And like I said before, it was my existential awakening. So I would say that's number 1. Madame Butterfly, absolutely. Her courage, her love, she's so loyal, fiercely loyal. And her love is so profound and so deep. I think that deep down inside, we would all wish to have a mother like her that would do anything for you. And I do believe yes, she's waiting for Pinkerton to come back, but her sustenance has been her child. And her hope and her love, yes, but her child. That's it for her. So, and I think we would all love to have either a friend or a companion that would be as loyal as she is. What's another one? I love so many. I love them all. But I will say this, okay. So I did Micaela several times, but then I had the great fortune to actually play the role of Carmen. And she intimidated me because that's one fierce lady.
See?
And I thought, what would my dad think? Seeing me strut my stuff like that. So, and I kept her at bay, and I couldn't embrace her. And I was in rehearsals, I was blanking on text, and it was my resistance to her. And a dear friend of mine, whose name is Hilda, she's very, very spiritual and very wise, and she said, I think what you have to embrace is precisely her fierce energy. Imagine, I think we've all heard this story that came out many years ago in a newspaper, that a child or an adolescent it ended up being fine, but was stuck underneath a car. And the mother, who knows where she got her energy from, was able to lift it enough so that the child could get out and everyone was safe. And I get chills when I think about it, that is fierce energy. And I thought, what? Carmen would do that. And that's who she is. I can identify with that. Okay. So then I began to embrace all of that energy. And also Carmen is very honest. She's not leading people on just blindly. She calls it like she sees it. And in a way, she was definitely ahead of her time, but quite masculine for the time in how independent she was and how she didn't fit any norm. She didn't go by any rules. That's what she did. And only men at the time could really behave that way. Today, thankfully, we can all be that free. But when I say Rusalka was my existential awakening, I say Carmen liberated me. So I love them all. Mimi, for example, in La Boheme has been a faithful friend to me, because you really become one with the characters you play, and you have to love them all, because if you don't, you hold them in judgment, which is what I didn't want to do with Carmen. I needed to love her too. So I hope that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
Isn't she wonderful?
Thank you. I want to say thank you for inviting me to be here, but also thank you for all that you do. You're a very, very special group, and I've been honored to be associated with this group since many years. I think it was 2001. Yes. So I thank you for all that you do, and just continue embracing the art form and life with a lot of joy. Thank you.
And that's what we try to do, because what we do goes directly, and the funds that we get are going directly to the educational programs and community engagement programs from LA Opera. And that goes to the community, and hopefully the community is engaged in opera and in art form, and somehow involved in art, and something that elevates us all. And that's why it's so important that what we do, and also it's important to see the greatness in the persons that are leading us here. So I really appreciate Ana Maria Martinez being with us today, and I thank her because not only she's a wonderful, one of the best singers in the world, maybe the best.
The best, yes.
But also she's a wonderful human being. She's very grounded, very spiritual, and I really appreciate how she's opening to us, and how she shares her experience and her love with us. And thank you for everything. Thank you, and good night, and let's just say hello to her, and then we'll be on our way.